You know that feeling, right? You have a brilliant idea in your head, but when you try to write it down, it just doesn't come out quite right. Well, in this explainer, we're going to look at some ancient wisdom that can help you turn those powerful ideas into a truly excellent paper.
So, here's what we're going to cover. First, the challenge of getting your idea onto the page. Then, we'll get into the art of persuasion. We'll also build a great introduction, connect all the pieces, and talk about why this all matters so much.
First up, the idea and the page. Let's talk about a challenge that pretty much every single writer has to deal with.
To really get a handle on the writing process, it helps to go way back to the ancient philosopher Plato. He had this fascinating idea about perfect forms. He believed that for everything in the real world, like a chair, there's a perfect ideal version of it that only exists as an idea in our minds.
And writing is a lot like that, isn't it? You have this brilliant, perfect paper in your mind, but then the first draft you actually write can feel, well, a little different. And if that's ever happened to you, don't worry at all. It's a totally normal part of how writing works.
So, how do we bridge that gap? Well, the secret is that good writing is really all about rewriting. It's a process. You take those abstract ideas and make them clear and concrete on the page through multiple drafts and lots of revision. That's how you get closer to that perfect paper you imagined.
So, for our next section, let's talk about the art of persuasion. Once you have your ideas down, how do you make them truly persuasive? Well, there are some classic tools for that, and they are just as powerful today as they were centuries ago.
The main idea we need to understand here is something called rhetoric. And really, it's just the art of using language effectively. It's not only about what you say, the facts and information, but it's all about how you say it.
And the person who really mastered the art of rhetoric was Aristotle. He was a student of Plato's, and he was one of the first thinkers to systematically figure out what makes an argument convincing. And his insights, they're still incredibly relevant for academic writing right now.
So, Aristotle came up with what he called the three appeals, three main ways to persuade an audience. They are ethos, pathos, and logos. You can think of them like the three key ingredients in a recipe for a really powerful argument. Let's break down what each one means. First up is ethos. This is all about your credibility as a writer. Basically, it's how you get your reader to trust you. In academic writing, you build ethos by using formal language, making sure you cite all your sources properly, and showing that you're looking at the topic in a balanced way. It's how you signal that you know what you're talking about.
Next, we have pathos. This one is about connecting with your audience. Now, in academic writing, this doesn't mean being overly emotional. It's about making your reader care about your topic. You create pathos by explaining why your research actually matters. Why is this problem important? How does it connect to real-world issues? That's how you get your reader invested.
And last but not least, we have logos. This is the appeal to logic and reason, and it's really the backbone of all academic writing. You build logos with a clear structure, paragraphs that connect smoothly, and this is the big one, by backing up every single claim with strong evidence and good explanations. Now we have our three tools: ethos, pathos, and logos. Let's put them to work on our next section, building your introduction, because this is where you really set the stage for your entire paper.
A great way to think about your introduction is to see it as a map. It's not supposed to be a mystery. Right from the start, it needs to clearly show your reader where you're going, and, just as important, why they should want to come along for the journey.
And there's a really effective framework that can help you build this map. It's called the Territory, Gap, and Warrant Framework. It might sound a little technical, but it's actually a very simple and logical way to structure a persuasive introduction.
It breaks down into 4 clear steps. Let's walk through an example. Imagine you're writing about social media's effect on student focus. First, you establish the territory. You say something like, social media is a major part of student life today. Next, you identify the gap. Here, you might say, but we don't fully understand its specific impact on academic focus. See, there's something missing. Then comes the warrant. This is where you explain why that gap matters. Understanding this is crucial for improving how students learn. And finally, you present your study, stating, this paper will investigate that specific relationship.
Now for the really interesting part. In this next section, Connecting the Pieces, we're going to see how those ancient ideas from Aristotle fit perfectly into this modern introduction framework. It all lines up beautifully.
This is where it all clicks into place. When you establish the territory, you're using ethos to show you know the topic and pathos to make it relevant. When you identify the gap, that's pure logos. You're pointing out a logical problem.
For the warrant, explaining why it matters, you're blending logos with pathos to create a sense of importance. And when you state your study, you're using ethos again, presenting your research with confidence. So let's bring all this together in our final section, Why This Matters. We can quickly summarize the main points and think about why these skills are so incredibly useful.
So, what are the most important things to take away? Well, first, remember that strong arguments are a mix of ethos, pathos, and logos. That's credibility, connection, and logic. Second, the territory gap warrant framework is your guide to building a fantastic introduction. And when you put those two things together, you get a really powerful, persuasive paper.
And remember, what we've talked about goes far beyond just getting a good grade. Being able to structure your thoughts and present your ideas in a clear, persuasive way is an incredibly valuable life skill. It's something that will empower you throughout your studies, in your future career, and in any situation where you need to communicate effectively.